Uber lost $31 billion. It was buying something. For 9 straight years, the numbers only went one direction. Down. Deeper. Down again. Most people file this under reckless, a company that torched a fortune and barely lived to tell it. But watch the pattern closely. The bleeding didn't wander at random. It concentrated in cities, one at a time. It moved into a city, it spent hard, and then, in each place, it went quiet. City after city, the same rhythm repeated. That's the anomaly worth chasing, a loss that behaves less like a wound and more like a purchase order. So here's the real question. What does $31 billion actually buy? And why can't anyone simply buy it back? Start with the story everyone already carries. Uber recklessly torched tens of billions and barely survived. The losses were a failure. The company got lucky to escape. It's a fair reading of the headline. It's also the wrong lens, because a failure doesn't stop on schedule. This one did. The moment a certain thing was finished, the losses ended and profit arrived. Failures don't behave that way. Construction projects do. To see it, you have to understand the thing Uber was building. The company calls it a liquidity network effect. Here's what that means in one clause. Liquidity is simply the odds a rider opens the app and a car is close. And this is where the mechanism gets strange. That effect isn't global, it's local, and it has a threshold. Read Uber's own words from the filing. The liquidity effect, they wrote, is more pronounced in large metropolitan areas and for shorter distance trips. Sit with that phrasing because it's the whole game. The advantage lives inside a city, not across a map. Below a certain density of drivers, the app is useless. Long waits, riders leave. Every dollar of spend drains straight out. But cross that density line and the machine flips into a self-feeding loop. Watch how each step pulls the next. More drivers in a city means shorter waits for riders. Shorter waits pull in more riders. More riders mean more fares, so more drivers come. And then it spins again, on its own, with no more spending required. That's the flywheel. Once it turns itself. The filing put an early number on the payoff, around a 5-minute average wait once the loop was running. This is why a challenger can't just outspend the gap. You can't buy the top of that loop. You have to build it, step by step, until it catches. And look at how much throughput that loop was already moving, even back at the filing. In a single quarter, the network carried 1.5 billion trips. That's the raw scale a challenger has to reproduce, not on a map, but city by city. The spend was never one national campaign. It was the same threshold, purchased separately in hundreds of cities at once. Each city is its own construction site, its own density to buy, its own line to cross before the flywheel spins on its own. Now measure what got built, because scale is how you tell an asset from a whole. Put these two numbers side by side. Last year, riders and eaters ran roughly $163 billion in bookings through the platform. Of that flow, Uber kept around $44 billion as its own revenue. That's the size of the machine the burn constructed. And here's the number a challenger has to face. Rebuilding that density from scratch would cost, by outside estimates, somewhere around $25 to $35 billion. Not once, and not nationally. City by city, at today's prices, with no discount for showing up late. That's the toll on the un-re-buyable asset. Now, hold Uber against the company that spent alongside it. Lyft. Lyft burned comparable money fighting the same fight. And last year, it finally crossed into profit. Look at the swing. Lyft went from losing about $340 million to earning roughly $23 million. Its first full year in the black. That's a genuine turnaround. It's also a rounding error against what it's up against. That same year, Uber cleared close to $2.8 billion in operating income. It added nearly $7 billion in free cash flow on top. Lyft's entire profit wouldn't cover a rounding line on that. The reason is where the spend went. Lyft stayed in one region, the United States and Canada, serving tens of millions of riders in a single market. Same tactic, a fraction of the map. The spend never compounded because it never crossed the threshold in enough cities to self-reinforce. That scale gap isn't a footnote. It's the moat, made visible. These two burn rates don't reconcile into the same outcome. So, return to the number. That roughly $31.5 billion lost since 2014. It was never a leak. It was a one-time capital purchase of city-level liquidity, bought in hundreds of markets before anyone else could move. And here's the proof it was construction, not failure. The loss ended the moment the thing was paid for. Last year, Uber cleared close to $2.8 billion in operating income, nearly $7 billion in free cash flow on top of it. The year before was its first full profit ever. The spending didn't taper off gently, it flipped. That's not how you recover from a mistake. That's how a bill comes due exactly once. A challenger can't shortcut this. Liquidity is local, so it has to be rebought city by city with no discount for arriving late. And now, the asset pays for itself. Strip out the accounting noise and look at the underlying business. Last year, it threw off roughly $6.5 billion in core operating earnings. That's the tell that the flip is durable, not a one-year fluke. The machine runs profitably on its own now. The mobility business tends to command a rising cut of each fare, north of 30% lately, up from the high 20s. That profit funds the next fight. Uber can cross-subsidize a contested city and still bank cash everywhere else. The moat compounds while a rival is still pouring the first foundation, and it funds something larger. The same cash flow lets Uber pay for the next technology shift itself, rather than only bracing against it. Which brings us to the one force that doesn't pay the toll. It rewrites the game instead. Driverless cars. The whole $31 billion asset is a human driver network. Take the humans out, and the density Uber bought may lose its scarcity. Here's where that threat actually stands today. The leading robotaxi operator ran around 14 million trips last year, roughly triple the year before. But its fleet is around 3,000 vehicles, expanding to about 14 American cities plus London next year. The nearest rival is tinier still, a few dozen cars in a single test city. That's real, and it's early. It points at the one exit no amount of past spending can wall off. Uber's answer is to fund its own place in that shift using the very profit the burn unlocked. Whether that's enough is the open question. So the honest read is narrow. The moat is real, it's paid for, and it's genuinely hard to rebuy. It is not permanent. Here's the framework to keep. A loss that stops on schedule was never a loss. It was a receipt. Uber spent 9 years and $31 billion buying a head start measured in city blocks. The same threshold logic quietly governs any two-sided network you can name. The only question left is whether the machine that replaces the driver arrives before the receipt finishes paying off. Big moat, bigger margin, we do the math.